Spiral from the Book of Saul is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman and stars Chris Rock, Samuel L. Jackson, Marissa Nichols, and among others. And in this film, it is the ninth film in the Saw franchise that started all the way back in 2004. And in this movie, in this entry, it deals with Detective Banks, played by Chris Rock, who discovers there's a copycat killer of Jigsaw that's going around basically targeting cops. And not going to go into detail because of trying to avoid spoilers, but it uncovers a ravel of stuff of why this killer is targeting cops, and the way it breaks it down with either following a similar footstep to what Jigsaw was basically doing, and also it has to deal with a mystery that's also it also deals with a backstory surrounding with Chris Rock's father, who's played by Samuel L. Jackson, that comes into play. Now I'll leave it there because that's pretty much the bare minimum, is that they're looking for a killer that's the copycat of Jigsaw. Now here's some backstory. Now this is a film that when the first Saw came out, it was a film that actually I thought was pretty groundbreaking because it was able to take a familiar territory with taking serial killer type angle, but taking a new spin on it to where it was dealing with a killer setting up traps and stuff, and it did it to where he gave people a choice and stuff. And when the first Saw movie came out, it blew my mind, especially with its twist ending that I didn't see coming at all. And as the series went on, I felt like 2 and 3 really captured it great with the way that they were going with the storyline, with how far Jigsaw was going, and then the twists and turns, the different accomplices that he had. But I felt like as it went on, it felt like there was it was steadily decreasing, especially when we got to 7 in the last one. And so, because I felt like if you really could have ended the film at the third movie, you probably could have had a nice little trilogy that could have rounded it out the way it played it out. But when they did some things that were interesting with 4, I thought that there was a good idea that they really took and created a whole new level, especially with the Hoffman storyline. And I felt like it really could have really gave us a great resolution on with the last one they did with Saw 3D, but unfortunately the way they planned it, it was like one of those franchises where it ran its course after a while. And since Saw 3D pretty much sucked badly, they knew that pretty much the franchise was over that point, and then they eventually brought it back with Jigsaw a few years ago, which I wasn't a big fan of at all, and I felt like it was just a very empty fucking movie that really, had really no linear. It really messed with some continuity with the rest of the film, with the series, and it didn't really generate anything special that we hadn't already seen before, and it kept having stuff that just was either contradicting stuff with the rest of the movies, or it just didn't really make sense with a lot of the way it was telling its story. So. And with this one, it got me interested because this was actually an idea that Chris Rock actually came up with in order to present because I found out he's actually a big Saw fan, and him actually wanting to take this idea of Saw with him being a major fan of it and also starring in the film seemed like a really good idea, and I actually really got interested, especially with the trailers that were coming out, and I figured maybe they were going to do something new and fresh. And I can say upon seeing the film, there are good things in this film I can appreciate, and it seems like they had potential for the right direction the series can lead in the future, but it is still very flawed. That holds it back quite a bit as a Saw film. But to get my pros out of the way, Chris Rock I thought did a great job. It's great to see him play a more serious route than what he's known for comedy in. And yeah, I've seen him do some other serious stuff in New Jack City, and when he was really young, back in the 90s. And then recently I saw bits of him in Fargo Season 4, which I thought he did really good in. I haven't seen the full season before I've seen of him. I thought, it's good to see him branch out and do other material. And I thought he did a good job in that show. And with this one, he really brings a lot of his intensity when it's called for. That mainly has to do in the second half, in the middle to the second and third half of the film. Because in the first half, it did feel like he was doing his usual comedy thing that felt kind of tone deaf with the way the story played out. And it didn't really fit with a Saw movie in parts. Other than maybe I maybe chuckled once or twice on some of the lines that he had. But when he brings his intensity and his seriousness to the table, he really pulls it off. And I thought he really did a great job having the very by the book, trying to go by the book cop, trying to, do all this and be able to catch the killer and stuff. And there's like the biggest moments I like is like you see in a trailer where his eyes are like fucking fierce the way he's walking down the hallway and stuff. I thought he really pulled it out of the park. And the same can be said about Samuel L. Jackson. It's great to always see him in everything I've always seen him in. And, he has a couple of funny his usual stuff that you say him, like, say, motherfucker in a lot of his movies in this. And this is what you expect from Samuel L. Jackson. He really did great. But he's really not really the main focus of the film that much like I thought it would be. So he's in it about how I expected him to be in it for as far as screen time. But when he's on screen, he is always a blast to watch. And, I thought the rest of the cast were fine. I just, they really pulled it off. They really did their, were fine with the material they were given and everything. And so the cast did great. But the ones that really, I think the really biggest standouts for me the most are the traps this time. Like, they weren't holding back with the director who's known for Saw 2, 3, and 4. He was able to put in a lot of emphasis on the traps they do this time. And one of them has to do with, like, one of the, there's a character that gets, like, these weird things in their fingers and stuff. And they go into pretty big fucking brutality in this part. And in one of the other traps, I won't spoil, but let's just say it has to do with glass. And I thought it was like seeing something straight out of fucking, what was it? There was something, I think it was like it was like watching one of those Tales from the Crypt episodes I seen, but I can't remember the name of it. But I mean, the practical, they do stick to practicals for the most part, and there is some CGI, some in the beginning and here and there that look noticeable. But it is still, when it's done with practicals, they go out, they don't hold back, and they really show a lot of the fucking gore that you expect out of a Saw film. And the traps are a lot more cohesive and what you expect from, trying to really showcase what they're doing for. But not to the extent like they were like overly done with the later sequels, but kind of keeping it with the gritty level that they're going for with the main storyline, with the serial killer detective feel that they're trying to hold back, that they're trying to go for. Now, with that being said, too, I also got to appreciate some of the aspects of the story, like the killer's motivation. I won't go into details, but let's just say that the killer's motivation is interesting, I thought, and there is some things that they do tie into what basically brings him to, trying to carry on with Jigsaw with, like, his legacy and stuff that I thought really worked, but it felt like it was very familiar, and that's the only thing I really held it back on. And one of the things I'm pro and con with it, because there's things I like about the killer, but then there's other things where I felt like it became too predictable at points, where I felt like, you obviously know who the killer is the way it goes into it. So that was my only big thing, is that it is a lot more predictable this time than what we've had with the surprises in all the other Saw films. But I really appreciate that they went for like this more like kind of epic scale, like the director was able to do, especially since it's more bigger budgeted this time. You get a lot more set pieces in the city more than you have in the other Saw films, and so they really do take advantage of it, trying to be on a bigger scale, which I thought really worked. And so the production design, the cinematography really capture a lot of what you expect going back to the Saw roots. Now, with that being said, though, as much as I enjoyed the way they do with some of the elements with the actual killer, that's also where I get into my biggest disappointment in my cons is the storyline. I felt like while there is some cool stuff I like with the killer and the way that they play out with, why he's targeting cops and stuff, I did feel like it wasn't really taking a whole lot of advantage, like, because it does have some things that are left unexplained with certain people that he gets for traps and stuff. And it's never really too clear why he picks certain people in the film. Then, I mean, it's kind of explained in the movie, but it didn't really I didn't really think it really made much sense the way it went along with the story. And in addition, I also felt like the way that the movie was edited, it didn't really do a whole lot of progression the way it developed with Chris Rock's character, because we get instances where there's flashbacks in the film, and the way they're edited, they're kind of off, where you'll be seeing like a trap going on, right? And then all of a sudden it goes to a flashback to when Chris Rock was younger, and we're merely thrown in there with really no build-up or really any type of leeway. And I felt like that was all over the place throughout the way it was all hacked together. And that's a lot to saying too, because the director worked on 2, 3, and 4, and especially in 4, he was able to capture some of the flashbacks in that movie to where it was edited in a cohesive manner. And I felt like this one, it just felt all over the place, where nothing really was, set on a clear, cohesive nature, the way it played out. And so that is one of my biggest issues I have with the movie the most, is the way it's edited out, or the way the way editing goes. But with all that being said, one of the other things I didn't really care too much was the fact that we get into some stuff that deals with, like, some of the stuff it's meant to establish character, but some of the areas where, like, it's supposed to show, like, Chris Rock going like undercover in some areas, I felt it did kind of feel like we're in a different film. And so the way it plays out in certain scenes are kind of all over the place and didn't really hold together with the rest of the movie. But with that being said, though, I still thought, given for what it was of the last two movies, this was at least a step up. And I can say that there is stuff in the future, especially at the ending, that I am 50-50 about, but there's things that I would like to see more if they continue in the future with a new series, with this series going on. And so it's one of those movies where I'm at least it's watchable, and it's something I can definitely own as part of the series. But it definitely keeps it hold back from being a good Saw film like the first and even some of the sequels. So with that being said, with all the things that I enjoyed about the film, I go with this one as more of I'm gonna go with more of a average Joe on the Film Freaks meter. You're almost there, but you had some things that just didn't really hold it together. So for those of you who have also seen Spiral from the Book of Saw, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.